Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Radio Free Wall Street. 5 o'clock New York time, and usually running late, by the way. This is the weekend, Memorial Day weekend edition of Radio Free Wall Street. Things are kind of screwed up in the studio here. I'm doing a one-man band. Everybody got the weekend off. I said, yeah, I can handle it. No problem. So I'm trying to get all the buttons and all that stuff figured out. But I need to tell you, the staff's been really working hard. I'm glad they're kind of out of here and everybody's, gone somewhere. I'm not big on that stuff. And I used to be kind of like a little, but now not at all. I think I've become antisocial even. And I keep telling you, something big's going to happen, okay? Maybe that's kind of, it's like if you know there's a war coming, well, you don't leave the damn control room, You want to stay on top of it. And I want to say that I've been covering a lot of stories about Donald Trump's publicity stunts and his desperation. There's a bigger story here, and I wanted to share it with you. It's a very, very important story. As my job is to analyze. And unfortunately, my business, there's like 50 billion million analysts. Everybody's a financial analyst. And the reason why is that with so much media out there, so many ways to get across in people, there's just all kinds of voices. Now, part of the problem is a lot of the voices are paid for directly or indirectly by people who've got something to sell you. So you hear about the emerging market fund, and then you've got 35 people, and they tell you about it. That's called 360 marketing. See, once you're target's a baby boomer, somebody with money, then what happens is what seems to be a lot of independent information that collaborates what you're hearing comes your way. But really what's happening is that you are being hunted by the marketing guys. And the problem is that many people have fallen prey to that because the knowledge of what you have, your funds available, your wealth can now be bought. So many people are confused and they feel like they're getting confirming opinion. The economy is doing good in the United States. Blah-de-blah, emerging markets are great opportunities and high yield and all that. And the tragedy is that, to my shock, and I want you to hear me, to my shock, the fact that we have got a global growing debt crisis is not making the news is absolutely shocking to me. We have Venezuela, which we know is in free fall and hyperinflation. That's pretty much common knowledge, but it's also Mexico. Colombia's having elections. It's in trouble. Argentina, Chile, Brazil. They actually had truckers blocking all the streets of the country over the high fuel prices. Not a story that's being told. It's shocking to me. You've got the same situation. We have the theme of this one is that the European debt crisis. Now, I'm going to name names and give you banks here. We've been here deja vu all over again. If you guys were with me in the last financial crisis, we were kind of the ones that said, no, don't buy the bullshit. Here's the trouble. We have banks that are absolutely broke in Italy. And this past week, we saw the yield on Italian government debt soar relative to debt of other European countries. And what's happened is there's a huge, huge risk exposure. And we look at the spread between the Italian bonds and the European bonds, and that surged by 20 basis points to 212 premium, okay? That is huge. And to give you a perspective, this is the Italian banking crisis Act 2. The Italian banks are in huge trouble, and Italian banks hold Italian government debt as 20% of their holdings. That is the highest level of your respective government's debt held by any bank in the world. Okay? And that is... now let me tell you something even uglier. 10 banks have 100% of Italian government debt that represents their Tier 1 capital, and Italian debt will never be paid. Okay, now, let me make you understand how critical this is. The problem you've got is that you've got banks that have massive exposure to Italian real estate. And what's happened is, besides the fact that they've had bailout after bailout after bailout, the situation has got critically worse. And what I don't think you understand, it's not getting publicity, is that this is spreading all across Europe, okay? Spanish banks have huge debt. BNP Paribas has a huge amount of holding of Italian debt. French, Belgium lenders that has collapsed twice, Dexia is in there. Santander, that is the Spanish huge bank, has a huge exposure. And what I'm telling you about is that you've heard about the Asian contagion and you heard about the Latin American debt crisis. Well, what they're not talking about is the huge risk in the Italian, Italy, France, Spanish markets. Okay? Now, these banks have been forced to buy their respective government bonds, okay? And the problem is that the banks are also holding huge amounts of dead real estate paper. I mean, colossal amounts. And what's happening is the cost of financing is rising, revenue is decreasing, and these codependencies of these banks make them like a domino. The house of cards is about to fall. And I really want to be very clear here that it is a crisis that's not being talked about. Italian banks, Spanish banks, Portuguese banks, Greek banks, French banks are holding huge amounts of bad real estate loans. Huge. And the problem is that no one knows exactly where those assets will fall. In other words, we don't know what rate to discount because there's no disclosure of the information. Now, the other problem is that these banks are holding huge amounts of their respective government's sovereign debt, which is not even close to being priced at the risk that's being taken. Now, I want you to hear me and hear me clearly. A global debt crisis already started. Latin America debt is in the process of wiping out. Latin American currencies are already falling. We've already got a debt crisis in Mexico. You've got a debt crisis in Venezuela. You've got a debt crisis in Argentina. Brazil's coming up the bat, and it's going to be very ugly. Are you hearing me? Now, why this is so critical is that what you need to understand is that a huge amount of baby boomers' wealth, both through their corporate retirement systems and their personal holding through tax-deferred retirement investment, is in that bank. It's in all these banks. And the reason why is the fund managers searching high yield have gone into the shit with no concept of what they were buying. And see, let me tell you why. When you buy sovereign government debt as a fund manager, you pretty much get a free pass. Now, I, as a hedge fund manager in the past, can tell you that I never fell for that shit. The reality is that sovereign debt is the most dangerous debt of all because most people buy it without understanding what they're buying or the liabilities. And because it's sovereign debt, they don't get any shit from the managements. So that means that as long as you say, well, yeah, we're buying nothing but sovereign rated debt, Mrs. Jones, now the investor's being fooled. We are on we are on the cusp of a European banking wipeout, and I might also add Asian bank wipeout, and U.S. bank wipeout, European bank wipeout, and Latin America bank wipeout. Before we get to that stage, we are already in a global economic crisis. The dollar's soaring in value. The euro's getting killed. So are the other currencies of the world, British pound included. And we are in the territory where we're going to start hitting sovereign debt defaults. Let me give you the list of that so you can write it down, and then I can tell you I told you so. We are going to see defaults on Mexican debt. Venezuela debt's already started. Argentina, Chile, Uruguay and Paraguay are a joke. Brazil. We are going to see defaults on Italian debt, Spanish debt, Portuguese, Greek, and of course French. Now, the other side of the coin is the other side of the world. A better way of putting it is I'm looking at Asian debt defaults. I'm extremely concerned about massive Vietnam debt. I am halfway concerned about debt in India. And I'm beside myself with what's going on with Chinese debt, which is the highest ratio of debt versus GDP in the world. I am not concerned about U.S. government debt. Are we clear here? I'm not concerned about the dollar. Gold will not shelter you because this will be a deflationary wipeout. Now, I want to be absolutely clear here. The reason for this problem is because there was such cheap money you could borrow for so long, and there was money desperate for a home, that people bought debt without discipline. And people have bought, most of them not even knowing what they bought through their funds, massive amounts of debt that's about to wipe out. Massive, massive. You got to hear me. People do not know. If you try to find out from a mutual fund manager what he's holding, you'll get a load of shit. Now, I'm urging you to get all your money back home in dollars. I'm begging you, please. This emerging market fantasy is nothing but a cruel joke. It's not going to work out. I'm begging you, please, 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 get your money back home. I'm asking you to cash in all your Roth, 4K, 10K, REK, every one of them, cash them in. By the way, the tax deferred and your taxes will be going a lot higher. Take advantage of the tax break now because this is as good as it gets. They're going to raise taxes, and I'll get into that in a second about how that mechanism is going to work. Cash in all these funds, all of them, right now. Get your money. Go to treasurydirect.gov and buy U.S. government paper like 10 years. No, it's in fact, what you can do is you can spread out your yield. Now, it depends upon your personal situation when you think you need the money. Your 1, 2, and 5-year paper will be going a lot higher. Your 10, 20, and 30-year paper, if it hasn't peaked, it's damn close to it. Now, you've got the most liquid asset in the world. You have got the most phenomenal instrument known to mankind in U.S. government debt. Take advantage of it. Treasury Direct is the government. You're 1,000,000% guaranteed your money's going to be there. It is absolutely the way to go. I'm giving you a great gift. The debt crisis looms large on my radar screen, and I'm going to tell you what. There is no way out of this, okay? The paper is so bad, and the loans are such shit, and the economies are in so much trouble in Europe that it is like nothing I've ever seen before. Hear me carefully, please. U.S. government U.S. banks, Mexican banks, Spanish banks, Italian banks, still have the debt they hold from the last 2007 and 8, 9 wipeout. It rolled over, okay? Huge amounts of shit worth zero junk bond debt has been issued by companies that will be severely impacted by this coming wipeout. You got to listen to me. This is a big shit. And this is going to end up very badly for you. Very, very badly. I'm begging you, please, please, please. Now, I hesitate to add very quickly that I am not telling you to speculate with it. I'm not telling you to send it to me. I am begging you to get this debt and get rid of it. I'm begging you to get into highly secure U.S. government debt and do it now. Look, you've lived through a number of recessions. You know how the song goes, right? We are headed for just such an event right now. And you absolutely need to understand that this is not a new recession. The last one was postponed by massive government intervention. There is no liquidity. The capital does not exist for these people to go ahead and buy their way out of this, okay? There's going to be no bailouts this time. And you need to understand that. And that means that we are headed for one incredible ugly time. We are headed for one incredible market drop in stocks. We are headed for an incredible banking wipeout. It has already started, and let me tell you, listen to me. The smart money is already moving into dollars. The reason why you are seeing the dollar soar in value is because people are getting out of euros and all these other shit currencies, like the Mexican peso and like the Italian euro bond debt. They're getting rid of that. And they're also getting out of things in these third world shitholes. What I'm trying to say to you is that this is really, really, really getting ugly. You got Turkey. Their lira is collapsing. You got the dictator there that's jailed half the country. He's taken over operations of the central bank. That's a big shit. A big one. You've got Italian bonds that are absolutely outrageously valued. People are dumping them. You've got a situation where Spanish paper isn't worth a shit. Greek is in the middle of a bailout and is going to need another one. This is a really big deal. You got the British exit, okay? That is going to devastate the pound. It's going to devastate the British economy. We got Donald Trump running around here starting a war and a trade war and talking shit with everybody. And that is a negative for the global economy. It might make America great again, if you want to believe that shit. But it will be through the fixture of a global depression. This will not turn out well. Now, I don't give a shit if you love Trump and you want to kiss his balls like Stormy did or whatever. Reality is the man is a nuisance and he's making incredibly bad decisions. Now, you can sink with the Trump Titanic, or you can get off the boat now before it sets sails. Okay? Whatever's going on with Donald Trump is not going to end nicely. Impeachment, no impeachment, elections, trade wars, trade talks. I mean, this is all blow and go and bullshit. Don't be sucked into this thing. America is not going to be great again. Our factories are not coming back to America. High-paying jobs will not be here. We are in a global economic slowdown. The dollar is vastly higher, which chokes off sales of our companies to things made in America. You can't sell it. You can't sell it. In other words, just the increase in the dollar has made American workers priced out of the market. So we're in big trouble. And you need to grasp that we are headed for a wipeout like never seen before. And listen to me. This is not a conjecture. The stock market, by the way, had two 1,000-point drop days. In case you haven't noticed, it hasn't required. It hasn't reversed. It's still in this wipeout. You look at the oil market, it collapsed on Friday. You look at the dollar, it's soaring in value. You look at U.S. interest rates are doing a moonshot. Look, you got U.S. interest rates at the highest price they've been since before the last wipeout. Is that registering to you? You got consumer debt, mortgage debt, the highest it's ever been. Mortgage refinancings no longer exist. In spite of the bullshit, banks cannot afford a flattening yield curve, which they got right now. Their cost of finance in the short-term market is doing a moonshot and increasing their loss exposure because the customers have to pay a higher rate, and increasing their disaster factor because their cost of money is going up. Oh, yeah, higher interest rates are really great because we can get more money. No, you can't. You've already loaned out. Let me tell you. The banks have already made all the mortgages they're going to make. They've already loaned out all the car paper they're going to loan out. They have already done all the credit card debt. So now what's happening is what you're doing is their cost of financing this debt is skyrocketing. Don't let them shit you. A flattening yield curve that reverses and inverts, and it's not this time different, is a disaster for the financial community. It is a sign of a recession. We are headed for one. Mexico is already in a recession. Colombia is already in one. Brazil already in one. Italians are starving. Are you hearing me? The Spanish economy is sucking shut. Europe is in trouble. Now, you need to understand this. You need to grasp it. And look, all I'm asking you to do is get your money and bring it home. When there was no yields, well, then you went for this high yield shit. Fine. Cash in. Take the money and run. You had a nice little run. You got as high yields as you can. Now you can get the same yields by going into absolutely no risk U.S. government securities. This is a big deal. Because let me tell you something. All those junk buying assholes, they've got to rotate that debt. And let me tell you what their problem is. Their problem absolutely unequivocally is their cost of financing is skyrocketing while their business model is coming apart. Now, they're not going to tell you this shit. You've never seen Wall Street announce a recession. They've always spun why it's not going to be one. You listen to me. This Italian debt, this Spanish debt, this Greek debt, Portuguese debt, French debt has gotten bigger and bigger. The underlying assets have become worth less and less. Their economy's in trouble. Italy is in a sustained wipeout. Europe and the European Union will be no more when this happens. Right now, the nationalist movement, people are feeling poor. It's kind of like what you've seen among the Trump people that love Donald Trump. They don't give a shit. They're poor. They got no jobs. They got no money. They don't care. Donald Trump's the guy that's going to save them. Okay? And making bad trade deals is going to save them. They believe that. Well, guess what? You've got that same kind of crazy shit happening in Europe. Italians believe that we're not going to have any immigrants. We're going to shut down the damn economy. We're throwing the foreigners out. We're going to get out of the European Union, and that's going to solve our problem. Do not underestimate the power of the Brit exit spreading throughout Europe. Do not underestimate the financial crisis that is coming. This is big shit. Look, the Italian banks have been held on life support for 5 years now, okay? They've been bailing them out and taking bad loans off of them. The problem is, as fast as they take off bad loans, more bad loans come. The market is pricing in disaster. Italian government debt is soaring. Okay? That is a disaster. A disaster, I tell you. The banks are full of it. The banks are full of Spanish paper. The amount of sovereign debt held by the respective countries that these banks hold is at levels they've never seen before, especially the big banks. There is no room for error. There is no parachute. There is no net under the High Wire Act. Are you hearing me? Please. You've got a perfect opportunity. And let me tell you why. Taxes are as little as they're ever going to be. Okay? So that means that you can now get out of your IRA, 10Ks, and tax-deferred accounts, pay the best rate you're ever going to get because rates are going to go higher. You can buy U.S. government debt, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And on the long-term debt, you're getting fantastic returns, something you haven't seen in 10, 15 years, and you're safe and secure, and you're buying right at the peak. I mean, you are getting the best return you can ever expect. It is a gift from God that you can get out of this game, cash in your retirement account. The stock market has already started its wipeout. It is not going back to new highs. The rally is over. I mean, sure, they'll have up days. The rally's over. Gold and silver, as you see, are plunging. They are not going to be a safe haven. They're going to wipe out. Now, you have got the greatest opportunity in a lifetime to get the hell out. Get your assets safe and secure. Now, I'm not talking about speculation. You got to get out of your real estate also. So if you want to speculate, you take 10 or 20% of your net worth, money you can't afford to lose, and there's all kinds of wonderful speculations. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the money that's absolutely, positively got to be there for your medical costs. It's got to be there to pay your retirement bills when you can't work. It's got to be there when your company lays you off. It's got to be there when that retirement from the company never comes. This is your core wealth, and you need to protect it right now. Now, look, you've taken as much time, and you're waiting and seeing, and what are you waiting and seeing? Mexican peso collapsing. You got an Argentina debt. They paid 45% for 90 and 180-day paper. Venezuela debt is worthless. They're going to wipe it out and default on it. Mexico's got a socialist president there that's pissed off with Donald Trump. There's a trade war. Okay, and they know that a lot of foreigners will hold their debt. The best thing to do is go. Let me tell you. The best thing to do is default. Let me tell you something. The idea that the countries will never default on their debt because they'll never get more. Let me tell you, on average, and I've tracked this for my lifetime. On average, countries who default on their debt are back in the debt market within 5 years like nothing happened. There is no penalty to pay. And it's cheaper for them to default on the debt, devalue the currency, and move on, okay? Because it's not the same group of suckers. The ones who got wiped out in the old last Mexican thing, well, they're too old now. They don't care. They're not around. Same thing in the Brazil wipeout. I mean, the memory is very soft in these short in these markets. Why? Because Wall Street, the people that package that debt, bundle that debt, and get fees for it, make sure that people don't have a historic perspective. You're not hearing the story about the currency collapses that's going on across the world. You're not hearing the story about how the foreign debt markets are locking up and falling apart. You're not hearing how much trouble they have with issuance. The only thing that's making this thing go, let me tell you, the IMF and the World Bank's in there, and they're in the back door buying this debt to make it appear like there's liquidity in the market. There is none. This European crisis is big. And you got Donald Trump. Now listen to me. Donald Trump doesn't get the credit for wiping out the Latin America debt market, doesn't get the credit for wiping out Europe. They did that all by themselves. But Dandy Don has no clue about this, and he's making it worse. This threat of trade wars. Well, you got a Mexican economy. They rely upon their exports to the biggest partner, the United States of America. And all they're hearing is about build a wall, make it tall, they will fall. Make it high, they will die. And you keep the gangs out and the murderers and the Mexican bloodsucker, throat slasher, rapers of young virgin girls, okay? Their jobs aren't there. The people are not coming to America from their countries, not sending the money back. This has consequences, right or wrong. I mean, let's not even argue about what an immigration policy is that makes sense. Let's just say that for 20, 30 years, people from Latin America have been able to get pretty much easy access to America. They've been able to get jobs, and they've been able to send a vast amount of money home, and that party's over with. For many Latin American countries, the money that people cleaning toilets and cooking your food in Mexico the money that people cooking your food and cleaning your toilets send back to Mexico and Guatemala and Central America represents the foreign reserve currencies for those countries, okay? It is a huge part of the economy. And that is slowing down. Now, right or wrong, bad policy, I don't want to get into that. The reality is that a huge source of money is not there. Factories, there are billions and billions of dollars of factories that were planned to go into production in Mexico, and the foreign companies, mostly Americans, have put all that on hold because they don't know what the hell Donald Trump's going to do. And they do. If you're a corporate CEO, Donald Trump ragging about your foreign investment from the White House Oval Office is not good for your longevity as CEO of that company. So everyone does not know what to do. These trade negotiations are going nowhere. Meanwhile, as a result of the lockup of foreign flow of cash, the foreign currencies are dropping against the dollar. The bonds are seeing a huge wipeout. Are you hearing me, folks? Please. Please. This is not maybe. This is what's going on. Europe has a similar right-wing approach, by the way. Donald Trump doesn't get all of the credit for hate everybody, send the foreigners back, goddammit, and make America great. Well, they want to make Italy great again. And they want to send the Africans back to Africa. And they want to make the Greeks great again. And they want to make the Spaniards great again. And the English want to make England great again. So what's happening is all these countries are becoming polarized. They're all pulling in their horns. They're all pulling in their investment. The flows of cash, the profits are shutting down. And it's having a devastating effect on the global economy. You have got banks that are highly leveraged on a tipping point in America, in Latin America, and in Europe. Now, China, well, you still got, the biggest phone company, basically, the United States put out of business. Donald Trump wanted to save the Chinese job. There is great support among the U.S. politicians, both Republicans and Democrats, to stop Donald Trump from rolling back the sanctions against this company. And that's gaining some momentum. Now, I'm not even getting into discussion about Donald Trump's fortune, how well he's going to fare in the investigation, how well he's going to fare on the elections. You've got the Federal Reserve of the United States of America that's going to meet next month in June. July, May's almost over. And they're going to raise rates. And rates are going to go higher and higher and higher. And the yield on U.S. government securities is rising. The cost of funds via the Fed fund rates to banks is skyrocketing. Now, you need to pay attention to this. You've never, ever, ever, ever had the Fed raise rates in the form of a recession yet. And we're there. Now, they're going to raise rates 3 more times this year. They're going to go 2 more times next year at least. Everyone's got their numbers wrong. The economy is poised on the edge of a cliff. See, when you got a highly leveraged economy, you've got this momentum stage, where the machine's been running at such a high rate and nobody notices. So what's going to happen is the machine's going to run until it flies apart. And you've got a lot of bad information, okay? You have a lot of bad information. You got a lot of people doing incredibly bad financial decisions. They are doing bad deals, and they don't understand it. Now, you've got a chance to get out while the getting is good. You got a chance to get extremely high yield on the most liquid investment you'll ever make U.S. government securities. You got a chance to duck and shelter in place. It would be really sad if you didn't do that. It would really be a disaster. So, this is not maybe, this is not possibly. The crisis is occurring as we speak. Are you hearing me? The Fed is raising rates. The yield curve is flattening. European debt's going gaga crazy, and they're pricing in on the sovereign debt of Spain, of Italy, of France, of poor little Greek, a higher premium because people now are looking at the risk. The European banking system is a disaster. So while the U.S. is raising rates, sucking the capital out, right? Europe is trapped. They cannot raise rates. They've got to keep pumping money into the system. And the concern is growing. You got a disparity between the yield of the United States and the yield out of Europe, and it's the biggest ever. And that is a warning sign of the disasters coming. So I am begging you, get out. Pay attention. This European banking crisis is a big shit. It is going to blow up in your face. It is going to be a disaster. I am begging you to please, please, please get out while the getting's good. Protect yourself. You know, I get to the point where I can say no more. You have been warned. If you just look up the currency markets around the world, look at the drops in the wipeout, look at the dollar. I know some of you are forever Trumpers, and that's really great, but look what he's doing. Look at these deals, and ask yourself, what does this do for global trade? What does this do to have confidence in global economies? And I'm telling you that this is absolutely a disaster in the making. We are headed for a recession. You have been warned. I've done my job.